I don't know, like, she's out there. You're the Florida version of Sex in the City, JD.
That's when I was smoking my cigars.
Don't be an asshole today. All right, so we've got Rakefet Abergel with us today, and she is ready and waiting, which is unusual for our guests.
Yes, it
I'm
is.
just gonna let her in because there is, nothing better than a short filmmaker.
Oh, yeah, for real.
Oh, hello.
Oh, there she is.
Hi. Oh my God. How are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see you finally.
I know, you too. It's been like 15 years. I don't know. It might be. It's been a long time.
Yeah, you were working on a YouTube series and you were filming in South Florida.
Oh, yeah. Breaking Fat.
Yeah.
Breaking Fat.
With Jill, right? With Jill.
I like that
Jill. Yeah.
Yeah, that was some fun.
That was really fun and seems like another lifetime ago, but that was a good time.
It really was. Like, it's funny because like you have totally switched genres.
I've switched everything. I've switched. I'm not married anymore. I've done everything's different. I feel like I'm a different person than I was then, although I'm probably the same person. I
don't know.
Different.
I don't know. You're half the size.
Dude, I don't know. I actually think I'm the same weight.
I don't know.
It shifted a little bit. But no, I lost weight and then I gained it back. So like from when you saw me, I lost a ton of weight and I looked amazing. And then I gained a bunch of weight again. And it's like COVID happened and I just gained a bunch of weight and now I'm trying to lose it again.
Unfortunately, it comes back.
Yeah.
It always comes back. I used to do a stand-up joke about how like the last 3 pounds are like, oh, is it about time to go back? I think we should head back. Like, no.
Exactly.
Now.
No. I'm just like, I'm looking at the background and I love how creepy it is.
Well, the only reason is because otherwise you could see all my bottles of water stacked up in my kitchen and it just looks weird. This is actually my poster for the new movie in the background.
So let's talk about that. Like, I was telling the JD that you a short filmmaker and you are right now like really hitting the horror market and I love that. And you are like a one woman show here. It's like you write it, you direct it, you star in it, you produce it, you do you raise the funds for it. But this is the thing, and I don't think that many people know that there's something about short filmmakers, like that I think is amazing because you got a passion for a subject and you throw everything you have at it and you've only got a limited amount of time. And, whether it's a 10-minute short, a 20-minute short, or whatever, but you're cramming all that passion into this tiny little time frame and you're telling a story in it. And it's like, I don't think people get that.
People don't realize how much work goes into it. Like my aunt was just watching me crowdfund and then one day she's like, so how long is the movie going to be? And I was like, 10 minutes. And she's like, 10 minutes. She just like, her eyes almost like popped out of her head. She was like, you're doing all of this for 10 minutes? And I was like, imagine if it was a feature, how much work that would be, because it's a lot of work. And a lot of people, some people can do it for less money and less time and effort, but honestly, I think you can see it in the final product.
That's what I mean.
I treat every short, I treat every short like a feature. I mean, I treat it like it's just as important. It has to look as good. It has to be as organized. It has to have the right funding so that I can pay people to do the work that they're doing. And I mean, I don't pay them well, but I pay them versus nothing.
Right.
And I make nothing on it. Like I do 4 major jobs, not to mention like all the other little jobs. And I don't put anything aside in the budget for me. I don't take a penny from it, like not a
Right.
penny.
Right.
Every single piece of money, like anything we get goes right into the project or to paying people who are going to help me make the project. And you know, I know people who put stuff aside for themselves, but it's like, why would I do that? I need it. This is my project. Like it's,
Right.
I should be
So
putting it in.
tell us a little bit like about your process. Like you get
Mhm.
an idea and you bang it
Yeah.
out, and how do you squeeze that into 10
Um,
minutes, like your story into 10 minutes?
Right.
Honestly, for me, the short writing is easier than features.
Really?
I find it to be a lot easier, not because it's shorter, but features, you have to explain a lot. There has to be arcs and acts, and you know, everything has to be like there's a formula, you
Yeah.
know. And with a short, it's kind of like poetry. There's no real formula. It's kind of you make it what you want it to be, and you
Yeah.
can get in and get out. You don't have to explain everything. You don't have to have a perfect ending. You don't have to, you know, every character doesn't need to be fully developed because we are only seeing them for a very, very short time. So
Right.
I find it to be a lot easier. Some
Mhm.
people are the opposite. They're like, I need the pages to explain it. I need the pages to
Right.
whatever. But I always liked writing short stories and poetry. And so it kind of fits that. For me, it's more about a moment in time. I don't want to get into all the details of why is she this way and where did she come from and where is she going? And I don't care. You figure it out. That's not my problem. My problem is I just want to show you an interesting person doing an interesting thing that you can relate to in some way, and then you fill in the blanks for it to mean
Actually
whatever it
cool,
means to you.
right? It feels like I don't know what the right word is, but like interactive. Like you're letting the audience come to their own conclusions, which means you don't think we're idiots.
Right. Why do I have to explain it? I mean,
Right.
sometimes, you know, with Jax in Love, my first film, there was a lot of questions at the end, like, well, what does this mean? And where does she live? And I was like, why do I have to tell people? Guess what? Like, it
Yeah.
means whatever they want it to mean.
Right.
You want to believe that she goes on and becomes this? Great. You want to believe that she's doing it for this reason? Fine. Like, I'm going to give you my thoughts about it and I'm going to put it out there, and then like enjoy, do whatever you want with it.
There's a lot of full-length films that are like that. You can watch
that don't give you that information.
It's frustrating. Yeah.
And it is sometimes, but sometimes it's nice, right? Because you're like, I get to decide what that ending means, you know, and what it means
the difference
to me.
too is that you haven't invested 2 hours into something and then don't have
and then they don't give you an answer.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even Jax and Boo, like the first two, I mean, I attempted to give an answer. Whether people got the answer or not is debatable. I attempted to give them, you know, something to think about. But short films should be that. I think short films should give you something to think about. Maybe definitely. You see a moment in time in somebody's life that you've never experienced that person's experience before. Maybe it's a really interesting character and you just want to kind of see the character be the character. And it's not so much about, and you know, it can just be like, at least for me, my short films all have, it's like set up, twist. That's kind of how they work for me. So other people have different like styles and whatever. I like to be like, if you're gonna watch this, I'm gonna have you watch it, and I don't want you to know what's gonna happen. And when you get to what's gonna happen, I want you to go back and go, wait a minute, I think she was trying to tell us that this was gonna happen. But I didn't pick up on it the first time. Like Boo, a lot of people the first time they watch it have no idea how it's going to end, and then when they watch it again, they're like, oh my god, I got so much more out of it the second time because I knew what was coming, and all of the stuff is there. Like all of the information is present. You're just not paying attention to it until you go back and look at it again, hopefully.
Wow.
Some people said they knew it was going to happen, but I don't believe it.
What like so when last we left you, me, you were doing some hardcore comedy, like I was
doing stand up
and Breaking Fat and all that was, I mean, that was it. So
I love that title.
I know, right? Well, it was like Breaking Bad. It was 3 fat girls selling meth. That was what it was.
Oh.
What made you take a turn to horror stuff?
What made you go crazy? No, a lot of things. I was doing a lot of comedy, and because I was a stand-up and I did a lot of like Disney and Nickelodeon shows, like kids TV shows, which is great, and I love it, and I hope I continue to do those things. But they were calling me in for like serious roles or dramatic roles, and I just was like pegged as a comedian. Like, you're funny and you're crazy and you can be kooky. And like, yes, I can, and it's fun and I like to do that, but I can also cry and scream and do dramatic things. And I also was never the lead because I'm an overweight woman, and I was never the leading lady. I was always the sidekick, the crazy lady, the this, the that, whatever. Again, all great things and nothing wrong with them, but I was like, I can do other stuff. And so I started to write, to set out, to give myself something to show people, guess what? I can do other things. And here it is. If you're not going to hire me to do it, I'll do it myself.
Right.
So I can show it. I can show you.
Yeah. Isn't that always the case though? That's usually why a personal project becomes personal, you know?
Yeah, because, you know, and so I wrote Jax to be the darkest thing I could think of. Whatever, I just thought I'm gonna write something really dark, something I really want to do. I always kind of wanted to do a road trip kind of a movie. I'd say Jax is a combo of like Misery meets Thelma and Louise. Something along the lines of that. So I thought, what can I write that I'm playing a role that nobody would cast me in, and I'm playing a role that I really think I would have fun playing, and show people that I'm a good actor. I'm not just a comedian, like I can act.
Right.
So that's how Jax came about. And then, you know, I won a lot of acting awards for it in the festivals and stuff. And I felt very vindicated by, see, I told you I could act. I'm not just funny. Although there were moments of comedy in it for sure. And even unintended moments. I can't help but be funny sometimes. Like it's kind of my default, so it happens.
A little bit of levity, you know, doesn't.
And it didn't hurt. It didn't hurt, and we had little moments here and there, and but I felt really like, okay, I did it. And then Boo, I didn't think I was making a horror movie. I never intended to get into horror. It wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna make a horror movie. Jax was just a really dark movie about a woman really wanting love and doing absolutely anything she could do to get it, which is me in a nutshell in general. That was very much my experience as a human being on this planet. Obviously I didn't kill anybody, but feeling like but feeling like I would do anything to get somebody to love me. And I think that's a very universal feeling that people have, especially
totally relatable
in general.
Great premise. Yeah, that's a really good premise.
Yeah, and it was like she only kills people she loves because she can keep them with her that way because she's crazy. And so she can kind of see them after they die, and it's their only way to keep them with her. So she doesn't kill bad people. She kills great, nice people who are very sweet to her because she doesn't want to lose them. So it's kind of like you don't want to root for her because you're like, wow, what a psycho. But also she's such a sweetheart that you're like, well, she just wants love. Like, I get it, you know, like she's so, but everybody was like, this is a horror movie. And I was like, this is not a horror movie. This is a movie about love. And they're like, no, this is a movie about a serial killer. And then it just started to do really well in the horror festivals. And suddenly I was like being interviewed for all these women in horror articles and women in horror this and women in horror that. And I was like, wait a second. I don't even like horror. I don't know how I ended up in this genre. I thought it was a drama. And I just didn't realize that horror was more than what I thought it was, right? Like horror is not just Saw and cutting up people and blood. It can be psychological horror. It could be horror comedy. It could be, you know, there's so many kinds of horror.
Right.
And I've learned a lot about horror in general in the last few years. So, and then with Boo, I was like, well, now everyone expects me to make horror movies. And I kind of felt like I needed to use the momentum of the horror kind of life that I had created for myself unintentionally, completely unintentionally. And so I set out to like make a horror movie on purpose. Like this is a horror movie and I'm making a horror movie so that everybody knows I can make horror movies. And then yet even Boo, although it's a horror movie, it's still most of it is very much just a drama. It's just, it has a very horrific ending. But anyway, and then this new film I still don't know. I wouldn't consider it a horror. I would consider it a drama more than a horror. But again, there are very much horror elements in it, which I think at this point I almost can't escape because I've gotten so enmeshed in the genre. And also it's about a woman losing a child, which is horrific in and of itself.
Oh God.
So it is kind of a horror movie also. It's just not... I wouldn't call it that. I just wouldn't call it that. But yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel bad. Like you can't get out of being pigeonholed in Hollywood. You know what I mean?
Well, now I'm pigeonholed in horror. I was pigeonholed in comedy, and now I'm very much pigeonholed in horror.
Yeah.
And it's because people want to put you in a box. They do that, right? Like, you're a lesbian podcaster, right? You know, and it's like, no, but I'm so much more than that. That's not what I am. That's not who I am. That's not my whole identity. That's not, you know, like when I was doing comedy, I kind of became like a lesbian comic. And I was like, but why am I a lesbian comic? I'm just a comic. Like, it has nothing to do with like who I'm married to or whatever. But I think it just makes people more comfortable to put you in some kind of, it's just easier for them. And
they just slap a label on it and, you know,
and they're like, I know what you are. I know what you do.
And they put you in a pile. You know what I mean? Like, here's the comedy pile. Here's the horror pile. Here's the LGBT pile. Here's the, you know, you can't mix them up. You can't.
You know what I mean? You know what? As someone who is, you know, I mean, I identify as bisexual. So I'm always feeling like I'm in the wrong pile. So what pile they put me in, I'm like, that's not me. They're like, oh, you're a straight. I'm like, no, I'm not. Oh, you're a lesbian. Well, I'm not, you know, like I never feel like I fit into one thing. And so I don't know. I think that's my whole life. I'm very much in the middle of everything. I'm in the middle politically. I'm in the middle of my sexuality. I'm in the middle, even like if I'm like girly or masculine, I'm not really either. I'm just kind of like neither. Both.
I always felt that way with my music because I felt like I didn't quite fit country, although I was in Nashville recording and was kind of country. I never could place myself in a category either, you know, in a genre.
And then you shouldn't have to.
Yeah, I mean, and then you get artists who, once they make their name, you know, like so many people did it. Linda Ronstadt, Stevie Nicks, I just found out, did an album of standards, like big band standards.
Oh, wow.
She sang at last and stuff like that. Linda Ronstadt did that in so many ways. She did that whole Latin album, and then she did the Nelson Riddle music. But you have to make your name first in something, and then you can kind of like expand, you know. If you're not, but it's true, I see what you mean. Before that, nobody knows where to put you. That's always been my thing with my music. They don't know where to put me. Like, what are you, rock? Are you country? Are you,
I mean, look, Taylor Swift also, she started country, then she was pop, then she started to do like this kind of edgy thing, and then she went back to country again. But she's Taylor Swift and she can do that. She can move through the genre.
Right. That's exactly it.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And
you know,
like
yeah.
a lot of actors, like Robin Williams,
Mhm.
funny
Oh,
drama.
right.
Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
funny drama. So
And
yeah,
then
Even Adam Sandler is now doing a lot of more serious things, and he's
yeah,
very good at it.
yeah.
And I think he does a great job. And it's sad that nobody's given them the opportunity to do that before then, because I'm sure he just wasn't even given the opportunity
Oh, definitely, yeah.
until
And I
he was
think,
Adam Sandler, and then they're like, okay, we'll try it,
yeah,
we'll
yeah,
see how it
And
goes.
right.
I think, and then you take like the Robin Williams, who's known for comedy, and then when he played a couple of roles where he was like a psychopath, like in that movie Photo Booth or
Oh,
something.
1 hour
Yeah.
photo.
Yeah.
1 hour
That
photo.
movie is
Then you
creepy.
see they could play these people that are scary. It's like that's
Well, if
even more.
you know any comedians, they are the darkest people you have ever
I've
met. Like
heard that.
they really, truly are. It's
Yeah.
not unusual for a stand-up to be in the horror genre now. You know what I mean? Like it's just we
Yeah,
tend to be very dark people, and most comedians are comedians because they don't know how else to deal with the pain that's going on in their life, so they make fun of it.
You know
Yeah.
what? I saw something, I don't even know where, but it said it was like someone said to me, your trauma has made you so strong. And I said, my trauma has made me strong, but it's also made me hilarious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
Yeah.
because
And
it
I
can
think
go
that's
either way.
yeah,
You
it's a big
it
part
also
of it.
depends on you. Who are you? Are you somebody that will go to comedy with it? Or are you someone who will go and write poetry and sad songs? Like and some
Yeah.
people will do one and some people do the
Right.
other.
And either is fine,
I've kind
because
of done both. I did
yeah.
the comedy and now I'm doing the sad stuff, in my sad movies. Like this movie is gonna be so sad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is
Sad
probably the
and horror?
darkest thing. Hmm?
Sad and horror, like a sad
Sad
horror.
and horror. I mean, it's about a woman who basically she suffered a stillbirth, and it's her trying to deal with
Ooh,
how to keep going.
that's so
Um,
wow.
and it's very heavy. It's based on, I had a miscarriage 2 years ago, and it like destroyed me. And I just had to write about it. It took me a while, but eventually I wrote the script, and I felt so much better after I wrote it. I just felt like I needed people to understand how it felt. Like I just was like, I need people to get how just traumatizing and painful this is. Because you kind of know it is. I mean, you would assume it is, but you don't realize all of what goes into it, and how like you see this life for yourself that just never materializes, and this person that you're never going to meet.
Right.
And it's just and it happens so much, and people don't talk about it, just like every other women's issue in the world. It's taboo, and you're not allowed to talk about it, and it makes people uncomfortable, and women feel like they can't share. And when it happened to me, I went on Facebook and I posted about it, and I talked about how devastated I was, and I posted pictures of the sonogram. And I mean, I needed to talk about it. And it made some people very uncomfortable. Like I could tell, like it did make some people, they just didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to deal with it. It's death and women's issues, like the two things that nobody like knows what to do.
Yeah.
And I realized, and then slowly women kept coming to me privately, even guys who are married or sisters who had gone through it, writing to me privately saying like, this happened to me, and this is how I felt too, and this is what helped me, and this is what didn't help me, and if you want to talk. And some of these people were people I've known my whole life and never knew that this had gone on, and because they didn't talk about it. And so you literally were like, there were people that were going through it at the same time as me, and I didn't find out till months later when I was talking about it with them, and they're like, oh, it happened to us at the same time as you because you posted about it. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know. And I could have been there for you, or I could have whatever, shared resources, something. So I decided that it needed to be made. It needed to be talked about. I was hoping it would start conversations and help women feel understood and seen, and help them. Like if somebody were to say to them like, well, I just don't understand how you feel, I want them to be like, here, watch this movie.
Yeah.
This is how I feel. I feel like that.
Yeah.
So if you see that and you get how I feel, then maybe I'll feel better, because at least you'll understand how bad it feels.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have that experience, you would never know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there's going to be backlash, and I know there's some people who don't like talking about it and who feel it's private and it shouldn't be shared, and it's just like crazy. Like, why is it okay to share that I had a baby but not okay to share that I lost a baby?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Especially since it's your story, if you just wrote that story from someone else's perspective, maybe people could be more critical, but it is your experience.
It's very personal. Yeah. And the movie is not my story, meaning I didn't write what happened to me. I wrote a dramatized version of how I felt. Like, I wanted to show that the way it felt to me was this like dream that turned into a nightmare. And I didn't want to tell my exact story, but I wanted to show how this can be a dream that turns into a total nightmare.
Yeah.
And so I changed a few things. I did not have a stillbirth, thank God. Mine was earlier, but I felt like it needed to be, the stakes needed to be raised a little bit to drive home the point of like how this felt to me, because it did, to me, I might as well have been 7 months pregnant, because it didn't matter. I was already ready and prepared for this life. I was changing everything about my life. I was going to move. We were looking at different houses. I was buying stuff. I was planning this whole different life. And then all of a sudden it was just over and gone. And that's it. And a lot of people were like, oh, you can try again. And I'm like, I didn't try in the first place. This kind of happened by accident. Right. I don't have a partner. I don't have any money. I'm 43 years old now. It may not happen again. That may have been my chance. That may have been it. And so for me, it was incredibly final and sad. And and for a lot of women, that's the case. Or they've had 12 miscarriages. I mean, I've talked to women who've had dozens. I don't know how they continue to try. I don't know where that strength comes from. But
yeah, that's just it. It's all really personal, and I'm sure there will be people that will watch your movie for their own reasons.
Sure. Yeah, I hope so.
And, like that's it's hard to say, oh, that's my target audience. That sounds awful,
but it kind of is. I mean,
in a way,
I want the women who have experiences to watch this, because I think that it will help them feel understood.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm a little bit not sure what to do about like a content warning or a trigger warning, because to some degree it could be very triggering for some of these women. But at the same time, if I warn them and they don't see it, I feel like that's doing them a disservice, because I think that they would find healing in it, or just understanding. And so I'm like kind of teetering between, do I warn people? Do I not? I mean, look, the movie's name is Still, and there's a baby on the poster.
Yeah.
It's not a far-fetched idea that this might be about a stillbirth. It's not like a big surprise. And also my campaign and everything is all about miscarriage and pregnancy loss. And we donated over $1,000 from what we raised to pregnancy loss organizations that help women.
Yeah.
That was nice.
I had to. I was like, we need to give back. I want to give back. So I said 5% of whatever we raised, we're donating, which was around $1,010 in the end.
Yeah.
And so we donated it to these 5 organizations that help women both locally and nationally. And then, and I've also been sharing, they have like different support groups and Zoom meetings and stuff. So I've been sharing that on our movie page, like for women who might have found the page. And so I'm trying to share the resources, because none of this stuff, when this happened to me, I didn't know about any of this stuff. I didn't know it existed. I didn't know I could reach out to these people. I didn't know I just didn't know. And I wasn't in a place where I could like, oh, I'm going to research this. Let me look it up. I want to find a support group. I'm going to find I just was like, I don't know what to do with my life now. So I'm trying to put it all out there as much as I can, so that people who are experiencing that kind of trauma have somewhere to go. Because there's these really amazing organizations doing really amazing things. And people should know that they're out there.
It's like there's good, there's good.
There's good to come out of it. I think there's a lot of good to be done. Yeah, for
some women, like I went through an infertility struggle for 5 years. I never actually was able to get pregnant, but I know what you mean about grieving the loss of someone you never met, because in those 5 years, trying and get your hopes up every month, and you think, you hope that a baby will come out of it, and you imagine how you want to make the nursery, or what you would have, when you have the baby. And then when it never happens, it's different from being pregnant and losing the baby, but it's still a loss that of something.
No, it's not that different, I don't think. Yeah, I don't think it's that different.
It's a loss of something you never had. I often thought about writing a song about that, like having.
Oh my God, you should.
You never met, but you for 5 years you imagine what that person is going to be like.
For sure. I mean, I was pregnant for a very short time, very short. I was like 8 or 9 weeks. It was very short, but in that time, I had already named him, looked for a place to live, thought about how am I going to raise him? Where am I going to move? I told my job I'm probably going to be leaving in a few months. I mean, like I was preparing, and thinking, how am I going to do this alone? How am I going to do this without a partner? My mom, thank God for my parents. They really stepped up. They're like, my mom's like, I'll be your birth partner. I'm going to take care of you. Don't worry. And my parents are Orthodox Jews, and they could have been very like, this is not okay. And they were just like, we're here for you. We love you. We're going to love this kid. You're going to be amazing. Don't worry. My mom took me to all the doctor's appointments, like all the stuff that needed to happen. They were going to help me find a new place to live and everything. So, and then one day it's just done. It's just over. And all of a sudden you're like, for me, because it happened so quickly, it almost felt like it didn't happen. And I needed to know that it happened. I needed to like make an imprint on the world that this happened and it was real and it existed. And
it's horrible.
And it's horrible. And it's absolutely horrible. And I mean, I had contractions, like I was in the hospital, like in labor. And and you don't think at 8 or 9 weeks you'd be in labor, but like I, for 2 days had contractions. I was in so much pain. It was horrible. It was horrible. And then what do you have at the end of it? Nothing. So and
the loss of
the suffering part of it.
It's just all this suffering, and then not even the baby to show for it, at the end.
Right.
And I can imagine, look, even with infertility, there's so much suffering that goes into that, and so much hope and so much loss. And I've been kind of trying ever since, to some degree, trying. And and every month I'm like, I get my period and it feels like I lost a baby again. Every single month.
I had endometriosis, so I was going through surgeries for the endometriosis and for treatments to try to get pregnant. And back then they put you on the OBGYN floor. So I was on the floor with the people that were in labor. I'm in my room watching the women walking up and down in labor.
Oh my God. That makes me want to cry.
And I just told my now ex-husband, just please shut the door, because I knew I was just leaving with another scar. I was not leaving with anything but another scar and a little less hope. But now they don't do that anymore. Now they put you on the floor. They have its own floor.
It's horrible. That's horrible.
And then they put a woman in the room with me who was pregnant, who was having some problems. And it was really hard to be in the room with her, because, you're hearing them on the side of the curtain.
My sister-in-law, who I love very much, and my brother, they were pregnant at the same time I was pregnant. And she had a due date of about 3 weeks before me.
Oh, geez.
Luckily, and I love my nephew so much. Luckily, he was fine. And they had their own infertility struggles, so it was like a big deal that they were even pregnant, and he came.
Mhm.
But forever and ever and ever and ever, I look at my nephew and think, you could have had a cousin that's exactly your age that's not here.
Right.
And
Right.
it's hard. And
Yeah.
and I don't want to ruin their happiness. And I don't really talk about it to them, but it's very hard. I mean, every time I see him, I think he could be here.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that he's here. Of course. I mean, I adore my nieces and nephews so much. But it's also, I'm the oldest. My siblings all have kids. It's very hard. And seeing pregnant women is very hard. And seeing women with babies are hard. I'm a teacher. I work with children every single day.
Oh,
Watching parents with their children every single day. It is hard. It is like, why do they get to be parents and I don't get to be parents? I'm sure you also can relate to that and feeling, or you see bad parents and you're like, how? Why are they allowed to be parents? I would be an
More often
amazing
than not.
mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
And why don't I get to have that, you know?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of feelings around it. So many feelings, whether you've had a pregnancy, not have a pregnancy. If you want it, there's pain there.
You know, on the complete opposite end of that, I think I remember I used to struggle with conversations, whether it was like this or, you know, even when we were younger, and my friends would already have their baby names picked out, and I'm like, I wonder if there's something wrong with me that I don't feel
You
this.
didn't want it.
Didn't want it, didn't care if it happened, didn't care if it didn't happen, it just wasn't like on my radar. And when people, you know, would ask, that was the only time that it would be a thought. Like, but in the day-to-day, minute-to-minute life, never even.
I honestly envy that. I envy it
Yeah.
because it happened to be the way my life kind of worked out. I wish I didn't want it. And I do believe there are women who are just like, I have no desire for that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with those women at all. It's not for everybody.
Yeah.
It's definitely not for
I always
everybody.
do wonder, like, if it was because I'm an only child.
It could be.
Like, because I seriously remember, like, I used to tell my parents all the time, I don't want a brother or sister. I do not.
You never wanted children in your life. You're like,
Anyway.
no
But yeah, I was like, but I was the family babysitter. Like, I loved my
Sure.
cousins, and I loved babysitting and taking care of them, and you know, and having fun with them, and teaching them how to swim, and watching them learn how to ride a bike, and all that kind. We all lived on the same street, you know.
Sure.
But it was like, I just didn't. You would think, though, being surrounded by it the way I was, that it, you know, but it's really.
It's so personal. Like, I really think some women just are like, and men, of course, are just like not into it. And that's fine. I don't think that's necessary.
I'm fascinated by kids, though. Like, what did I tell you, JD? My Instagram feed is all like little kids.
That's
little
right.
Kids eating, little kids eating.
Swaddled children. Then when they unswaddle.
But you can love children without wanting to have one in your house. You know what I mean? It's much different. Like, if I babysit, I'm like, now it's your problem. I'm leaving now, you know, like I'm going home.
I do. I feel like I, you know, like there's times where like it's the third time in the day that I'm vacuuming up litter off the floor.
Right. Oh my God, me too.
I can't imagine if I had a kid, I'd be following them around with the
honestly, my cat would have been really upset had I had the baby.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm the baby.
We just give all our love to our
I treat my cat like she's a full-blown child, and I have a stroller for her, and I take her on I take her on walks. People are like, you're crazy. I'm like, I don't care, this is my baby. Get back to my baby. And I would do anything. I freaking love my cat. But but even when I was married, like half of the reason we ended up getting divorced was she didn't really want children. It wasn't like a big thing for her. She kind of was doing it because I wanted it. So we kind of looked into it and we signed up somewhere and we were thinking about it. But she just kind of was like dragging her feet. And that was a big part of it for me. I was like, at the time I was 36, she was 40. And I was like, we don't have a lot of time. Like, if this is gonna happen, like, it's gotta happen like now. And you seem to not really be wanting to do this. And she's like, well, I want to do it because you want to do it. And I was like, well, that is not a good reason to want to do it.
Yeah.
And so it became just another kind of issue that led to us getting divorced. But and then I never dated a woman again, and it was not on purpose. I have not been with a woman in like 8 years now, I think. But I'm fully bisexual. I'm very attracted to women. It just, I don't know. I think because I've been so child-minded that it just became easier for me being bi to just focus on men because it seemed more likely to happen that way.
Right.
Not impossible, obviously, any other way, but just it seemed more like the direction I needed to go. And I have not had any success with that. But you know, who knows? So weird.
One of the things I'm curious about with a topic like this for your movie, did you have any trouble or have a hard time like crewing up? Like, were men weird about it?
Oh, no, actually, no. The only thing that was a little weird, I guess, between men versus women was with the script. When I would send men the script, including our original DP, who was a man, but then he had to back out for reasons having nothing to do with us. And our new DP was a woman, but their men's response was always like, well, what about the ending? There's just not a lot of hope. Like, don't you want to give people a little bit of hope at the end? Right. The women, not one woman said that to me. Not one.
Really? Wow.
Not one.
So interesting.
And so, like, the men really wanted to resolve it. We want to fix it.
They wanted to fix it.
You're sad. I want to fix it and make you feel better and show you that you can try again and you can do this and you can do that. And the women were like, this just sucks. I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
And maybe there is no hope. And maybe that's just what it is.
The realist.
And the men were like, there's got to be a ray of sunshine or something at the end, you know? And I'm like, no, there doesn't, because I didn't feel any hope. I felt like this was it and this was my chance, and I'm just fucked.
Right. You know? Like, feel my despair. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And maybe my character has hope. Maybe she does later on. But in this immediate moment when she's really grieving, that is the last thing she's thinking of is, how do I fix this?
Right.
She's just thinking, how do I survive this?
Right.
How do I get through it? How do I feel okay? You know, when we shot the final scene of the movie last weekend, we were in the middle of the night in the forest and we're shooting this scene at the end, and it's a very intense ending, and I'm crying my eyes out on screen, off screen. Like, I was just crying and directing and crying, and like, it was just, but everybody started to cry. I mean, my AD, who's a very tough boy, man, was like, came up to me like crying. Okay, we're just gonna try it again. We're just gonna go around. Like, and I'm like, are you crying?
Wow.
And I looked around and like everybody was crying. Like to some degree, everybody was like tearing up, crying.
I'm sure it's relatable to everyone.
Because it's about loss. So even if it's not a baby,
right,
you've lost somebody, something.
And you know, that's the thing, is that like, you know someone that went through it, you went through it, you've heard stories about people going through, you know, I mean, I don't have a lot of respect for Chrissy Teigen, but she put it right out there, you know, that it happened, and like a whole, you know, Instagram thing, like, you know, posts and pictures and you know, like there's a element of bravery, you know, that goes along with it when you do put it out there. And I think people have a lot of respect for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, people kept saying, this is so brave, it's so brave. And I was like, I don't know that I feel brave. I just feel like, for me, it's not that brave, meaning it's not that hard for me to share about it.
Right.
Like, I think for some people it would be very brave.
Yeah.
For me, I've always been a very open book kind of a person, even in my stand-up.
Was it more cathartic?
Yeah, it was like, for me, it almost feels selfish. That's kind of how it feels to me a little bit. It feels a little selfish because it feels like I need to do this for me to feel like it mattered and to feel like it happened for a reason and to feel like my baby, or what would have been my baby, because I guess it wasn't really a baby yet, whatever, we'll get into that debate, but to me, like, that this future child, like, he didn't come, look, I'm Jewish, I'm not very religious, but in Judaism, we believe in reincarnation, we believe that there's a reason for everything and all that stuff. So somebody might believe, and I kind of do, that maybe this soul that was going to be my baby, maybe his sole purpose was to come into my life for this very short period of time to make me tell this story to help other women.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I had to suffer. And maybe that's what his purpose was. His purpose was to make me suffer so that I took that suffering, turned it into something artistic, and was able to reach other women who may have not been reached before, or have not. So, and that makes me feel better, because it makes me feel like there was a purpose to this. It didn't just happen and end, and there's no reason why it happened.
Right.
I can't deal with the fact that it's like, why did this happen? I don't know, just cause, like, it happens.
Right.
And it's like, but there's got to be a reason. Like, why am I going through this? Why is this happening? So it helps me feel better, I guess.
Yeah, it's huge. Let me ask you this, because this is always one of those things where short film in its form, and a lot of people do it. Some good, some not so good. But the thing is like, what I find as a viewer, taking away, if there's something out there that I want to see and it's a short film, especially like when the Academy Awards roll around and there's a whole short film, category, like whether it's animated short or regular short or whatever, I always go, I don't know how to find these to watch them.
Yeah,
I'm not a festival goer. You know what I mean?
That was exactly my question.
How
do you find them?
Yeah.
There are, it used to be harder. And now with streaming and the internet and stuff, there's a lot more places to find stuff like that. For instance, if you're really into horror short films, there's a YouTube channel called Alter. And they also have one called Dust that's sci-fi. And they put up the best of the best horror. Boo is on there. They take like really high quality shorts, and they're free. You can watch them on their YouTube channel. They have like 2 million subscribers or something. There's that. There's a channel called Shorts TV that's available on some streaming services. And now, like, a lot of festivals will have online components too. So even if you don't go to the festival, you still can watch stuff. There's more and more. There's a new service I just signed up with. They're called Red Coral Universe, and they're going to be putting up curated short films that they have, like, whatever, and it's being backed by a really big producer, the guy who produced Sling Blade and Catch Me If You Can. And so, he's putting his expertise behind it, and I'm pretty soon both of my films will be up there. There's lots of places. There's a place called Short of the Week on Facebook. They do a different short every week that goes up. So now you can find stuff like that. There's another YouTube channel called Omeletto. I don't know what the name is supposed to be, but there's a ton of short films on there, comedies, dramas, like whatever. So now you can find that stuff. A few years ago, even, it was hard to find. But what's great is that A, there's an audience for them, because there is, and B, you work so hard on making these short films, and it's like, if you're only going to see them at a festival and then they just kind of disappear into the ether, it's like, why did I do this? Whereas now they have a life of their own. I mean, I have Jax and Boo are on Amazon Prime, so you could go on Amazon and watch them. They have other shorts on there. HBO also, or Max, or whatever the fuck their name is now. They also have short films on there. So now a lot of, like, Hulu has, I think, a short film section. Although to get on those, probably harder than not.
But what's cool is that a lot of big name actors are finding their
Doing.
way, right? Like
Right.
Aubrey Plaza, who I
Yep.
love. Yeah, like I saw that she had done one, and I'm like,
Yeah, if you go to like Holly Shorts Film Festival, there's a ton of them that they play
really?
every year with like
Wow.
huge names in them that you're
Wow.
like, because it's also something that they can do on the weekend. You're like, if you can get to them and
Yeah.
give them either the money or the project that they might be interested in, you're saying, I need you for 2 days. I need
Yeah,
you for 2 days. And they can sometimes just fit it in because it's something they really want to do or they like, or it's a role they wouldn't normally play and they're
right.
getting a chance to do something different.
Yeah,
Or they just were like, there's what's his name? Danny Trejo.
yeah.
Supposedly if you pay him like 5,000 a day, he'll do anything.
Believe
Like
that.
there's
I
like,
totally believe that.
Eric,
Yeah.
what's her name? Eric Roberts is in like every
Really?
indie movie ever because he also, it's like he has a day rate. I don't know what it is, 25, 3,000 a day. If you pay him his day rate, he will be there. He will get on,
Incredible.
and so it's
That's
like,
awesome.
Boo, we had Parisa Fitzhenley, who was a series regular on numerous shows. Josh Kelly, also a series regular. Laura Slade Wiggins was in both of my films. She was on Shameless, and that's where we met actually when I was on Shameless with her. This is the only film she hasn't been in, and I'm so sad because I didn't have a part for her. I was like, I don't have anything
Oh,
for you to do. And she's like, I want to be in it. And I'm like, I have nothing. I have nothing.
Wow.
it's funny when we
Um,
were talking to remember when we were talking to Scott Lowell,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
he had a YouTube series, right? Adoptable, and he had Noah Wiley in it. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh my God, like he was in a
That's
YouTube
awesome. Yeah,
series.
I mean, like if you know, look, we had David Krumholtz was in Breaking Fat because I
Yeah.
was friends with him.
Yeah.
And I was like, come and do this stupid web series with us. And I guess he just was free and had nothing to do and thought it was funny. And he was like, yeah, shit, I'll come down. I've been trying to get him ever since, but now he's kind of making a name for himself and I'm very happy. So it's been harder to get him to like respond and do what I need him to do.
Yeah, I think I last saw him in Mom, right? He was
Yeah.
in Mom, yeah.
Well, now he's in that new Oppenheimer movie. He was just on Broadway. Like he's been very in demand, and I'm so happy because he's such a talented person and a kind person, and he deserves all the success. But also, I really want him to be in my.
Is
Listen,
there no hope when you do these short films, or does it happen that it becomes a full length, like someone sees it and says, "Oh, we want to see 2
more.
hours of that"?
Yeah, yeah. It's been for me. It's been a curse, but a lot of people go into it specifically for that reason. Like they're like, I'm gonna make this short in order to get attention and money and blah 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 for my feature of this. Like it's a proof of concept.
Yeah.
Right, right.
I
Okay.
never go into it with that. To me, it's just a short. If it becomes something else, it becomes something else. But I don't do it. I don't do it for the next step. I do it just for the step itself.
Yeah.
But like Boo had a lot of success. And I had many, many people saying, like, where's the script for the feature? I had meetings. And I was like, I don't have a script for the feature because I didn't like expect this to be anything really other than what it was. I have since been working on the feature script because it seems to be something people really like. And it would be fun to make a feature of it for sure. But everything's been on hold with this new movie. But yes, a lot of people do that intentionally, and some people it just kind of becomes that. I would love to make Jackson Love, my first one, a series. Like that is what I really want to do. I think it would be an amazing, like a female Dexter kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And I just think it would be really fun. And there's not a lot of female serial killers on TV or anywhere.
Right? Yeah.
Especially not overweight female serial killers. So bisexual overweight. It was very important to me. She was a bisexual character, and it was very important to me that people knew that. Because you don't see a lot of that either.
Right.
So I wanted to really represent who I feel like I am, and like whether it's a woman my size or a woman my sexuality or whatever. And so hopefully one day that can happen. Hopefully Boo becomes a feature one day. Had a bunch of meetings, but it was right when COVID hit and everything,
God.
like a bunch of the companies I were talking to actually like dissolved and people got fired and the person championing the film wasn't there anymore. And
Oh, man.
so it kind of just didn't really pan out. So this film, I don't want to say it's my last chance, but it's my really last ditch effort to try to like make it to the next level, so to speak. And instead of just throwing it out there to the festivals that I know will take it, I'm actually waiting till next year to try for Sundance and TIFF and Tribeca and the ones that are going to matter in my career. As much as I love the other ones, they're not going to really change my life in any way. So I'm hoping that South by Southwest, I don't know, that one of them just likes it and it gets out there and the PR is there and people are like, oh, you're a really talented actress or director. I don't even care what they hire me as. One of the things
that was just for music. I didn't know they had
South by Southwest has a music festival. They also have like a tech part and they have a film part and it's like a 4-week extravaganza. I've never been, but their film festival is it's up there with Sundance. Like, I mean, it's just as prestigious. So look, you can't win the lottery if you don't play the lottery. So I'm going to send it. And if it doesn't get in, it doesn't get in. But like, what's the worst thing? I wasted a few $100. But the best thing could be that I get some attention as a director or as an actor and I get offered other jobs and can stop teaching full time. I like teaching. I just, it's not what I want to be doing necessarily. I do enjoy it, but I don't want to do it as much as I do it.
That's what I mean. Like, I don't think people understand, like, when are regardless of your project, it's whether it's, most of us have day jobs, and when we do set out and do a project, there's a level of passion there, that we're sinking into this project. It's not,
and it takes time and energy. And I mean, I was in pre-production for this. I was crowdfunding by myself, teaching 30 kids a week, teaching 2 grades also on top of the 30 kids tutoring 101, and trying to like be the director, writer, producer, and everything. So, and people don't realize, like, it is very hard to keep all those balls in the air. I've been sick for the last 3 weeks because I think I'm just been like exhausted and overwhelmed, and I just keep getting sick because I think I'm not getting enough sleep and whatever. But
I know, I was so worried. I was like, oh my God, you're still on for tonight. Like,
well, I know, because I was sick the last time I was sick, but I was sick the week before my movie and I was sick the week after, but for some God bless reason, for 4 days I was not sick and I was able to get the shoot done. But I swear to you, I was sick up until the day before, and I was sick the day we finished. And I think it was like sheer will and determination that I was like, I am not sick, I am fine, and then as soon as it was over, I was like, I'm so sick.
That's my wife when we go on holiday. The first 3 days she's sick because constant work mode and
just the stress and finally stopping and relaxing. And my parents are my dad is very much like a workaholic, and he really believes in work ethic and working hard and whatever. And my whole life has always been, maybe he would disagree, but slightly disappointed that I don't work as much as I should or something. He actually sat me down like a couple days ago. He's like, you need to find time to go on a vacation. Which for coming from him means I must be working really hard, because he was like, I said, I can't, I have this and I have bar mitzvahs and I'm teaching and he's like, figure it out. You got to push him off. You got to move him away. You got to take the time. You have to make the time. And coming from him, it just meant like, oh, wow, I must be like working harder than I even think that I'm working.
That's old school for like what's now self-love, self-care, self-love.
Exactly.
Yeah. And to him, he'll work. He's got 102 fever and he's like, I'm going to work. And I'm just like, well, you rest. And he doesn't rest. Both my parents do not rest. They are constantly doing. And I think that's why I'm not that way usually. I'm actually very much I'll work, but I need a few hours where I'm not doing anything. I need to have the downtime. I need to take the time for myself. And they feel like that's me wasting time. I could be doing other things. And I'm like,
Okay.
sometimes taking a nap is doing other things.
Right.
Sometimes
The
watching
thing,
TV
yeah.
is doing other things. And I
Right,
can't go. But
Yeah, my whole day is like that. Do a little something, give yourself a break. Do
yeah,
something, give yourself a
I
break.
take a nap almost every day if I can. Not today because I've been like nonstop today, but some days, most days, I find a time, even if it's for 30 minutes, to lay down in my bed and just be like, I'm just gonna lay here for 30 minutes and just like not.
Yeah. I can do it like I could do like a 15, 20 minute or like just sitting there on the couch going, but I
Yeah.
can't, yeah, I can't go up to bed or I won't come back down. So,
Oh, it is hard to pull myself out for the afternoon tutoring because like
I bet.
I do movie stuff in the morning and then the kids aren't out of school till 3. So that's when the tutoring usually starts, like 3 to 8. So I, from like 1 to 2 or whatever, I could be going to take a walk, which is what I should be doing, but I'm usually napping.
It's all right. It all works out in the end. It's all about balance.
Yeah.
Listen, I appreciate you taking your time out. I know that you have got so much going on. I couldn't believe that we were doing this. You just finished the film. I saw it on Facebook. I was like, oh wow, what timing.
Oh yeah, no, you guys are my first interview since we finished. I mean, we're editing right now, but hopefully, I don't know, by September. Well, Sundance last deadline is in September, so it's going to be done by September. And then it probably won't hit any actual festivals till next year. Whether it's the good ones or the other ones, they're all good, but you know what I mean.
Well, you posted so we can give like
I will. I'd love to do it again. I really enjoy this. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's just been really nice, just like hanging out and talking.
I know, it's so good to see you. I'm so glad that it's all happening. I really am.
Thank you.
It's great.
And if we are done with crowdfunding, but we are still raising money because we unfortunately we went way over budget. So the money that we did make was not really enough. And we still have post and film festival submissions. So if anybody wants to contribute, they still can. You can't do it on the Seed and Spark link, but if you go, which I'll give you, but you can go to the Seed and Spark link to see what perks and incentives we originally offered, and I'm still honoring all of them. So whether there's a DVD with all of my films that's going to be coming out that will include this one, also behind the scenes documentaries and stuff like that. There's like producer credits, there's posters, there's stuff, whatever. So people can donate like by Venmo, PayPal, Zelle, however you want to, Pigeon, whatever, however you want to get it to me. Send a check if you have to, and we'll still honor all of the incentives at those different levels. And I promise you the money is going directly into the film and nowhere else. We just, at this point, it's like either coming out of my credit cards or if people keep donating. So I would prefer if people kept donating.
Of course.
And I'm happy to give you whatever perks and incentives you want that were originally
So they
offered.
would go to Seed and Spark and they would look for.
They can go and be like, oh, well, for $150, I can get a session with a tutoring session with Rakefet.
Oh, no, I get that part. Do they have to search something specific?
Oh yeah. Well, how do they find it?
I'll give you this link. So it's seedandspark.com/fund/still short film, but I can write it out for you if you want to like put it. There's also, I think, a link on my website from cyclamenfilms.com. So there's also a link to go there. You just can't donate on there because the campaign is over. But I can give you Venmo, PayPal links, stuff like that. Also, anybody can just reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm happy to answer any questions. And it would just be, it would be great. We're going to have special, thanks in the credit. You'll get your name in the credits. You'll have a part. You'll have a part of having made this happen, which we still need you to do that. Yeah,
that's amazing. So yeah, we'll put the show up next weekend, but we'll make sure that it's on the. I'll
send you all the links that you would need, and you can just copy and paste if you want. But people are still donating. Like every so often, I'll get like $50 or something, and we shout you out on social media and thank you if you want, unless they say they don't want that. some people are like, do not talk about me on social media, so I
My
don't.
God.
They're like, I don't want my name to be on it. And I was like, that's fine. But we'll shout you out. It's just the only way for us to make movies
Yeah,
without
let's get you
studios
covered.
is
And
to have
that's
people
we don't want
donate.
you to have to do it out of pocket. So yeah, the goal is to make
It
sure
gets really expensive. I mean, the traveling's going to be all out of my pocket. Going to the festival's going to be out of my pocket. So if we can at least get the post-production done, and if we can get the submission money to like make sure, because that's so expensive. Sometimes they're $60 to $100 each festival. It can get real pricey real fast.
Yeah, I was so shocked to learn that. I never knew that, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's no guarantee you're going to get in either. And you got to make posters and postcards, and you want to give out buttons because that's the only way people will come see your screening. And
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, merch.
it's a very long, expensive, tiring process, and that's why I only do it every 5 years or so. Like, my first film was like 6 or 7 years ago. Boo was like now 4 years ago. Some people do it like one after another, and I do not know how they have the stamina to keep up.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, the crowdfunding part of it is so hard to get the word out and
I hate it. I hate it. I was saying I'll never do it again. I always say I'll never do it again. And then I realize if I don't do it again, I can't do it again.
Yeah. I used to do the same thing with making CDs and new albums. Well, now they're not CDs anymore, but making new albums.
Sure.
Yes, one, not doing it again. And there you are, 3 years later, 5 years later, whatever.
You're just like, you have to, because if you're an artist, it's like you have to. You have to create.
I mean. Like it's a passion, and it's like you got to fulfill that.
It's like childbirth, I think if people like remembered how bad their childbirth was, there probably would be a lot of people. But I think people have a baby and then a few years later, they're like, I wasn't so bad. And then they do it, they're like, oh no, it was pretty bad. And then they forget again. And then they have a third. I said to my mom, I'm like, how did you do this 3 times? She's like, you forget. You just kind of forget.
Yeah.
And that's how it is for me with creating stuff. You forget how hard it is. So and you're like, I know it's hard, but it's not that hard. And then you're in it and you're like, oh, this was like way harder than I recall it being.
Yeah. Because it's just, getting, it's I think in this day and age, the reach is so expansive, so the work is more.
It's even more because you have to do so much more to get out there, and you have to be your own PR and your own marketing and your own this and your own that.
We say that all the time.
For sure, as any kind of an artist, a musician, a filmmaker. But that's why I don't make movies that don't have meaning to me, because it's way too much friggin' work to make something stupid. Yeah. Like sometimes when I see really dumb movies, I'm like, I think about all the money and time and effort that went into it. And I'm like, who thought that this was a good idea to put so much effort into?
I know. I often lean over to my wife and go, somebody knew somebody. Somebody knew somebody.
Why are you making that? I don't know. So like I've been offered, directing stuff that I'm like, this is fine, but I don't want to spend 2 years of my life on this. Like, it's fun. It'll be a fun movie. But it doesn't have any meaning for me. And so if it doesn't have a message, Boo is all about addiction. And it was all about addiction and drinking. And for me, it had meaning. And I had addicts coming to me telling me, oh, I feel seen by this movie. I feel understood by this movie. And that's what keeps me making them, is making an actual effect on real people in the real world and their real emotions and their real, lives.
I think there's so few people, so few people that can say that honestly, and I know you're one of them, because I do think that it's sometimes people get in it for the right reasons and stay in it for the wrong reasons. So I think you will never see me taking on some dumb thing because it's going to pay me a lot of money. They were going to pay me a lot of money for this feature, and I was like, for me it was a lot of money, not to like other people, but I was like, but it's like just meaningless. It's meaningless. Yeah. For what? For like 2 hours of fun for somebody to watch, I guess, but like that's not enough for me to put that kind of effort. I think the word is integrity.
I
Yeah.
suppose, yes.
Yeah.
I just want to make a difference on the world. And if I don't have children to do that with, to like leave behind, I want to leave behind a legacy of like, I tried to help people in the way that I knew how, whether it was to make them laugh or to make them cry.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's amazing. I think what you're doing is pretty darn special.
Thank you. I think what you guys are doing is darn special. I love that you give this opportunity for people to talk about their.
Yeah, man, we want to shine a spotlight on all the creatives in our community. So we appreciate it.
Thanks for including me in your community too, because not everybody does.
Be in the LGBTQIA community.
I said I'm always like I'm the silent B in LGBT. I'm the silent B that nobody wants to talk about, but I'm there. And I feel a part of the community, whether some people believe that I am or not.
Well, we believe, man.
Thank you. I want to be a part of that community.
Yeah. Listen, take care. Keep us posted on every little thing, and we'll see you on the socials.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. Nice to meet you,
Why do you always run back to
like never stop chasing your dreams?
You once knew you're addicted to her touch. That's true. My addiction. And I confess, my addiction is you. I had to take this midnight drive to find you. And as I come in through the door, I see her dancing on the floor beside you. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. Can't disguise, I want you. And though it seems I look right through, I'm noticing your every move. She's got you. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. Jealousy reveals my rage and madness. And knowing you can read my mind consumes me in a shameful kind of sadness. Why do you always run back to the lover you once knew? You're addicted to her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. To her touch, that's true. And I confess, my addiction is you. Why do you run? Why do you run?